Now we move on to a very interesting aspect, which is the anthropology of Qawwali, which Dr. Vinay Srivastav is going to give us a talk on. He is a professor in Delhi University, and like I said, he's been the principal of Hindu College. Thank you, Dr. Vinay Srivastav.
So good afternoon to all of you. After such erudite and evocative lectures and performances, you'll find my presentation extremely uninteresting and also very academic. But I can't help it. I can't help it because I am from the university and one who is very closely connected to research and research traditions. And what I would do today is provide some kind of an understanding of what could be called an anthropology or a sociology of Qawwali traditions. I have been very closely observing this tradition, partly because I was born and brought up in old Delhi, where the Qawwali tradition was a part of the household structures. I remember my childhood days when my grandfather, my maternal grandfather and paternal grandfather, both of them used to invite the band of Qawwals, and they would come to our house. And I still remember that my job used to be to serve them with sugar pebbles, what are called misri, sugar pebbles and kali mirch, the powder of kali mirch. And these Qawwals would sing. And this used to be a household performance. I was born and brought up in this tradition, Qawwali being very close to that. The second part is that I am married to a woman who has been working on Sufi tradition, and I accompanied her on many rounds of field work in Delhi, outside Delhi, and had an opportunity to listen to several Qawwali performances and also to speak to several Qawwals. Actually, in all these lectures which I have heard on Sufism, the lectures I have heard on Qawwali, the reading I have made on Qawwalis and other analogous traditions, Qawwals are absent. Who are these people? How the tradition is cultivated? What are their economic problems? How they relate themselves to contemporary world? We have to make a distinction between the great tradition of Qawwalis and the little tradition of Qawwalis. The great tradition of Qawwalis here, where you have Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, the Shahanshah of Qawwal or Qawwali, and where you have the very prominent names, people whose cassettes and whose performances bring them a lot of money and they are affluent. What about those Qawwals who sing at the shrines of various saints in different parts of the city? What about those Qawwals who, do their performances at lesser known shrines? And have we tried to understand their lives? Have we tried to understand their problems? And if the tradition of the Qawwali is to be kept alive, then these are the people who need to be studied. Their problems need to be addressed. I was touched by what Manjari ji said in the beginning, that most of these Qawwals are not highly educated. the tradition they have acquired is from their families, and they have learnt it, and they perform, and now this is the time that all this needs to be documented. It needs to be understood, in fact, which is the title of this workshop or this seminar, Understanding Qawwali. And the tradition has to be kept alive. The tradition has to be made central to the mainstream of Indian music, rather than something which is bizarre, which is peculiar, something which is outside the mainstream. Already the films have done quite a bit of it. Whether it is right or not is a question of value, which one can take up a little later. Now these are the problems which I want to address. Well, as I said in the beginning, that I come from a discipline where what is central, both the disciplines which I handle, social anthropology and sociology, what is central is what is called field work. Now this is something which is basic, rather than looking at the Qawwali performances, downloading from the YouTube, or listening to the cassettes. Go and see the actual performances. What actually happens there. And then from these performances, from the study of these performances, go to the qawwals, what we sometimes call the follow-up approach. Speak to them, find out their problem, see how the traditions are being cultivated at the local level. What are their economic problems? Do they want their children to learn the qawwalis? Do they want the tradition to continue? Our concern should not only be with the great tradition of the qawwalis. Our concern should be with the little tradition of the qawwalis. With this as the prologue, with this as the opening note, I would like to submit a couple of things about what I have learned from my understanding of the Qawwali tradition, and many research questions which emerge out of it, and the questions which can be taken up in later and further investigation. Now, the whole study of Qawwalis in the context of culture, after all, music is culture. In the context of culture, has to begin with the role of music in religious performances. It's a broad idea. What is the role of music? Role of poetry in religious tradition. Because as you know, that there have been people who have been anti-music. We know about it. And we also know about it that in many of the religious traditions, music is rather downplayed. So when we have a comparative study of different religious traditions, we find that most of the religious traditions we come across, notwithstanding some of their sectarian movements and cultic organizations, notwithstanding that, we find that music has become or is an integral part of most of the religious tradition. And the two questions which are asked is that why music should be a part of the tradition. This is the first question. Why it should be there. Can't we have a religious performance? Can't we establish some kind of a communion with you call it Almighty, you call it God, you call it by any name, without any religious performance? So why music should be there? And then the second aspect is, what does music do? The functional aspect. What is its role? How does music transform us? The whole idea of sama, which we saw, a large number of pictures which we saw, with which we are familiar. Now, you find various species of music. We have arti on the one hand, we have bhajan, we have kirtan, and we also have qawwalis. different kinds of musical tradition. Some of them are solo, some of them are in chorus, some of them can be a team performance, some can be an individual performance, and there is a great deal of variation in it. Now the question which will come to my mind is that what are the differences between these traditions? Can there be a temple performance without arti? Perhaps not. It is an integral part. But perhaps bhajans and kirtans may not be a requirement in the temple. They can be extraneous to it. If they are coupled, it is all right. Otherwise, they can always be kept outside. And in addition to these performances, we also have certain performances which are at the domestic level. The domestic performances are very important, and to the best of my knowledge, not many people have attended to and given attention to what happens at the domestic level, the kind of singing which goes on at the domestic level, the kind of performances which are organized at the domestic level. I gave you the example of my childhood days when qawwalis were sung in my own house. Now, when you compare these different religious traditions and you come to qawwali as one of these pieces of this particular tradition, it is essentially an institutional performance, and that's how I would like to see it. It happens when the institution is open, meaning thereby when there are people, the people are around, and it is almost comparable to arti. It happens when the institution is functional. I have seen in many of the Hindu temples bhajans being sung after the temple has closed, and the devotees sitting outside and singing bhajan. So something which is a part of the institutional structure. We just learned about the Qadris and about the Chishti silsila, where it was an integral part. But what has happened, which in fact has also happened with other species of music, is, and let me use this word because this word is quite common in contemporary literature, the word is decentered. Qawwalis have been decentered. Decentered means they are no more a part of the institutional structure. Perhaps this process started long time back, and this process is going on. So you organize qawwalis in your houses, in colleges, in schools. I was in Hindu college, and every year the college hostel day had qawwali performances, and the qawwals came from Nizamuddin Aulia shrine, and they performed there. And these public performances were adjusted to the time schedule of the institution. In other words, sometimes these performances were in the afternoon, and perhaps afternoon is not the time to listen to qawwalis, because qawwalis also have a particular kind of adaptation to the time schedule and the time performance. So it has been decentered. It has become quite secularized, a process which once again needs to be studied, what I would call the secularization of the qawwali tradition. So religious numbers are sung in secular context. The secular words have become part of this, and you find the same performance at the religious place, the same performance at the secular place. The words, may remain the same, or the words may change, and this actually leads us to a very important part pertaining to the actual performance. I mean, someone should sit down, perhaps I will do it in years to come, listen to the qawwali as it is being sung at the time of Urs or on a Thursday. Most of the shrines have qawwalis, and the articles say it is a propitious day. It is an important day, perhaps because of the fact that the shrines are quite animate. Javed and Zinda. These are the two words which are used. And on Thursdays, the Javed-ness of the shrines or the Zinda-ness of the shrine is much more. And you can relate it with the souls descending from the seventh firmament to the place where they are, or where they were actually buried. So you find that the traditions are adjusted to that, and with the coming of the secularization, especially the roles of the films, what has happened is that the Qawwali tradition has become further decentered and ramified. I can easily identify, as I'm sure if you look around you will be able to do that, at least 4 processes which have occurred. The first process which has occurred is the feminization of the Qawwali tradition. This is a very interesting thing, that women are singing Qawwalis, which in fact, as we learnt in the earlier part, it was all patriarchal, very, I would not use the word patriarchal, I'll prefer the word androcentric, very male oriented. And this is a better word, that men are a part of these Qawwali groups, and they are generally kinspersons. They are related by blood, by the ties of consanguinity, and then there are children who are a part of the band, and the process of learning is also going on simultaneously. You can have a look at the pictures of Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and his family members, and all of them are related, and the young, what is his name, Rahat Fateh Ali Khan, is his child is with them and is clapping and is singing. So these aspects of, they are androcentric and they are kinship oriented, these band, and so these Qawwal families often talk about the long traditions. I mean, we have heard that Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan's tradition is 600 years old or so. The second thing which we find is, apart from feminization, is the competition among Qawwals. And I think you remember the film Barsat Ki Raat, and you see this competition which is going on, and how this Qawwal comes with a large number of medals stuck on his coat, and in the competition which goes on, and sometimes you come across this competition between men and women, the male group and the female group, and this goes on. The third thing which you find is the restoration of the religiosity in secular places, which is very interesting, that the secular places have their own species of songs, but these religious places come, and the fourth thing you find is that new Qawwalis are created, new words are created, new tunes are created, and the old numbers are added to the new numbers, or the new numbers are added to the old numbers. And this brings us to a very interesting and a very important question regarding, who has been writing these Qawwalis? Who are the authors? Who are the authors of these Qawwalis? I have heard a large number of these Qawwalis, particularly of the little tradition. Of course, the great tradition also I am familiar with. You will find that each Qawwal is adding something from his own side. And I have often observed that if suppose the mnemonic power fails, memory, for example, fails, suddenly is unable to remember the next line, he would improvise one, immediately would improvise one. And then of course it will be repeated again and again, and it will fit in so well. I sometimes see the Qawwali tradition as highly syncretic and highly adaptive, highly syncretic. It can observe. We talked about Hindi, Urdu, Turkish language, Arabic language, Punjabi, and Khadi Boli, Brij Bhasha. You can also add lines from English language. You can add lines from French language, and they will fit in extremely well in the Qawwali tradition. One of the questions which comes to my mind is, and someone should be able to answer it, that why we do not have in India the regional traditions of Qawwali. For example, Qawwali is being sung in Tamil or in Telugu or in Malayalam or in Marathi. Why the whole tradition is confined to the northern part is something which needs to be investigated. Try to sing Qawwali, but their singing was more like the Bauli singers, like bowls, those who have been singing. So the regional traditions of these Qawwali, why they have not come, why the whole tradition is confined to the northern part, and there is a very strong probability of the regional traditions to develop, particularly because of the syncretic nature of Qawwali tradition, just because of the highly, let me use this word, highly plastic and malleable nature of the Qawwali tradition. Something in which everything can be accommodated, in which all kinds of performances can be accommodated, and a tradition which is, and this is my other observation, and this goes very well what Professor Shelley said this morning about the highly pluralistic, tolerant nature of the tradition. Highly pluralistic nature, highly tolerant nature. Well, this is the tradition. You want to add something to this? Please go ahead. Please add it. We provide you this innovativeness and this creativity. You can do whatever you want to do, provided you do not defy the basic structure of the Qawwalis. So this tradition, which now is having two aspects. Number one, tradition as it is cultivated in the religious institutions, and the second, the tradition which is cultivated in the secular institution. And these two traditions are not contrapuntal. These two traditions are not contradictory. They are not paradoxical. I would see that how they actually go on together. Now, we have heard a lot about Qawwalis. Few more points. I will not take much. Brevity is the soul of it. So some of these ideas which come in our mind is about the sama, how this is created. I have read a lot about it, and also the fact that it creates a situation where the members of the audience, they are at the verge of annihilation. The term used is fana. We have also learnt about many of the profound and renowned saints who in fact breathed their last in moments of sama. We have many stories, and they became fana. They became one with Almighty, or they were released, or they had the ultimate truth. Now my question is, does it happen even today? Does it happen when the Qawwalis are sung at the shrines? Go and observe it. I attended an urs all the days, and every moment I was there at the shrine of Abu Bakr Tusi. Now, you may always say that I did not go to the right places because I was just following my wife. So I couldn't go to the right places. Perhaps now I'll go. She was doing her field work there, so Matkapi, Abu Bakr Tusi, Hadri, Qalandri. So I attended the shrine, and I was particularly interested in seeing the let me use this word, the ecological template being built up, the aura being built up, in which the individuals are becoming more and more inwardly, more and more looking inside when they are being transformed. Yes, it happened with some of them. It happened with me. To tell you very honestly, it happened with me. It provided me an opportunity to be in a crowd and at the same time be alone, lonely. Lonely man is the creator. So said Rabindranath Tagore. Lonely man is the creator. Shame exists amongst many, lonely man has no shame. Fear reigns amidst many, lonely man has no shame. Lonely man is the creator. The idea being realizing oneself. What Qawwali did was, and this is I'm basing not on what is written in text and what we have seen here, but what I saw there, to add one more thing to this with my own eyes. So what I saw was that people were getting transformed, becoming more inwardly. Qawwali was creating what is called assembly of listeners. I would use this word, assembly of listeners. This assembly of listeners, people who are at peace, people who are sitting, they are not the usual interlocutors. Interlocutors, those who are walking in and going out, the pravachan is going on, as you may see in many of the other religious performances. The pravachan is going on, people are coming, sitting for a while, looking at their mobiles, going out, coming once again, and the person who is giving pravachan is just going on. Now, it was not happening there. People had peace with themselves. They had settled down, they were listening to it, they were rocking their heads, clapping. Some of them were simply very quiet, looking inwardly. What it was creating was, I would call, individualization, realizing yourself. Others exist because you exist. You all exist because I am there. This kind of a peace with oneself. Actually, for my study of comparative religion, I can say that one of the pieces of advice given to all of us is, in a day, be alone with yourself for some time. I think that is the whole idea of meditation. So, realizing themselves, and then they were all being transformed into a community of believers. And I can illustrate this process, and someday I will write up an account, saying that how Qawwalis transform an assembly of listeners, giving rise to individualization, realization of the individual, looking inside, finding oneself very close to the truth, and then becoming a part of the community of believers. And what is the belief? What is the belief which Qawwali tradition, the belief which Qawwali tradition popularizes, the belief which Qawwali tradition puts forth is human equality. Is that all of us are one, Allah ke bande. We are all created by Him. We are all created by Almighty. We are all equal. This message of equality. The gender distinctions of age, distinctions of strata, they just collapse. I have seen, and you have also seen, when the Qawwals keep on repeating the same word again and again, eventually what happens is the word becomes meaningless. It becomes meaningless. You move from the realm of meaning to the realm of meaningless, and this is actually the zero experience. It is realization of oneself. A great tradition which actually does it. You actually feel it. In fact, when I was heading into college, I promoted Qawwalis. I tried my level best to promote, just because I myself had realized this process of where the notion of equality, the notion of oneness comes through a part of the performance. I am not observing Qawwalis on my TV screen. I am a part of it. And that is why I would urge upon everyone to go to the shrines, especially the lesser known shrines, and be a part of the assembly of listeners, especially lesser known shrine. I was asking my wife that what happens at the shrine of Nasiruddin Chirag Delvi. What happens there? And she said that it is a lesser known shrine. Not many people go there. I said perhaps I would like to go there and listen to what people say. And this brings me to the last thing, something which really worries me, it really troubles me. I did my work in Rajasthan, and I was quite touched by the economic conditions of the people who work with puppet shows, and how abysmally they live in a penurious state, poverty, particularly, because they don't want to change. And you have so many other crafts, other arts, other loads, which are on the verge of decline. What happens when the Qawwali session goes on? If the Qawwal is singing very well, people are entering into the state of ecstasy, or at least trying to enter into the state of ecstasy. They take out money and go and offer it. What is it? This money which is being offered, can we classify this money in any of the terminologies we have? Is it dan? No. Is it dakshina? No. You have a term called veil, I think, which is used for this. Where is it a fees? No. If you feel very happy and your pocket is loaded with money, you give 100 rupees, you may give even 500 rupees, and if you are poor, you just give 10 paisa. Of course, they have now become extinct, 1 rupee. Okay. Now, what kind of a payment is this? My hypothesis about the Brahminical rituals is that many of the Brahmins do not want to perform the ritual just because they are not economically remunerative. The Brahmin comes, the Panditji comes, performs puja. At the end of the puja, you give him 101 rupees. Aarti is performed, and after taking blessing from the Aarti, you give 1 rupee, 2 rupee. Well, there has to be some kind of a fees structure. Many of the Arya Samaj temples in South Delhi, where I live, they have, in addition to all this dakshina and other things, they have a fees, for the performance. After all, we and the institutions like this one, we have to take care of the tradition, and these traditions will be able to continue, will be able to survive, provided we take care of the economic problems of the people. And this will only be possible when we bring a Qawwali to the mainstream. Mainstream, what it would be? It would be schools and colleges. It would be public performances, where Qawwali should be an integral part. And perhaps, institutions like this, we are all with you, can help in promoting. This will give rise to the dynamism of the tradition. Of course, the tradition is already very, very dynamic with the films contributing to this, but that is only contributing to the great tradition and not to the little tradition. I would, as an anthropologist and a sociologist, I would submit that we should carry out more studies of the Qawwals, the people who are involved, their families. We should try to understand. We should listen to what they say. We should listen to the conditions in which they are placed. We should try to document their lives as well, in addition to their tradition. This will be a great service, and this is our submission also. This will be a great service to a tradition which is threatened, if not completely dying out, especially at the local little level. Thank you very much.